On today's episode of Locked On Oilers, a massive win against the Seattle Kraken. Broberg and Evan Bouchard starting to find their stride, and we go through the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report. All that much more in today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, hockey is for everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. On today's episode, we're going to start off with the massive 5-2 victory for the Edmonton Oilers over the Seattle Kraken. It was a little bit of an analytical masterpiece. We will talk about that in just a second, but also on today's episode, speaking of analytical masterpieces, Broberg and Evan Bouchard have really raised their game, especially since starting playing together. And why? What makes that duo so important for the Edmonton Oilers, especially as of late? We will talk about that a little later on today's episode. And to wrap up today's episode, the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report, as we look at the prospects south of the border playing down in the States today. All that much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, let's get into the massive 5-2 win for the Edmonton Oilers over the Seattle Kraken. A massive 2 points for the Edmonton Oilers as they crawl within 5 points of the Vegas Golden Knights atop of the Pacific Division right now for the top spot in the Pacific Division. And things are starting to get a little muddled in the Pacific Division in general. The Vegas Golden Knights, the Edmonton Oilers, the Los Angeles Kings, the Seattle Kraken, the Calgary Flames. You can't forget about the Calgary Flames, although sometimes I wish I could. They are all within 5 points of each other for that top spot. The Golden Knights and the the Golden Knights have 58 points. The Seattle Kraken and the Los Angeles Kings are tied with 56. The Edmonton Oilers have 53 points and the Calgary Flames have 51. So the Calgary Flames have 7 points back, not 5. But either way, it's closer than what people thought. And down this stretch here, especially after that tough Pacific, yes, the Edmonton Oilers did play the Anaheim Ducks and San Jose Sharks, but it's still a tough little test through California, especially after a 6-3 loss to the Los Angeles Kings. The Edmonton Oilers are able to come through with 3 wins out of the 4 on that road trip, a 3-game winning streak coming back to home, which they haven't had a lot of success at home. And they go up against a very difficult road team in the Seattle Kraken, again coming off an 8-game win streak recently. The Edmonton Oilers put skates to ice and put the work into it and won 5-2. The massive thing in this game is that the Edmonton Oilers only had really one absolute beauty, and shocker, it was Connor McDavid, as he scores his 38th goal of the year. But the Edmonton Oilers had success below the face-off dots. The Edmonton Oilers had over 21 attempts on goal towards Martin Jones from below the face-off dots against the Seattle Kraken last night, and had 3 of their goals scored in the Seattle Kraken crease. The one other one was the Connor McDavid goal, and the other goal was the Eeli Tolvanen putting the puck in his own net type deal. That still a grinded out type hockey. I'm going to throw that in there along with the goals in the crease. Now, it wasn't in the crease, but below the goal line, a hardworking goal for the Edmonton Oilers, and that is how they found their success against the Seattle Kraken. Now, I mentioned it was a little bit of a analytical masterpiece for the Edmonton Oilers over the Seattle Kraken. Again, I'm not big into those J-Fresh boards or anything like that, but I do like to take a look at the analytics and the advanced stats from here and there and see what really makes players and teams successful. And last night, the Edmonton Oilers had an expected goal rate of 4.19. Seattle Kraken, 1.58. Expected goals in that game. The Edmonton Oilers, of course, getting 5. The Kraken getting 2. One of those goals, a very, what's the proper term for this? A very kind of Jack Campbell goal, maybe, I guess we could put it like that, as he's had a couple goals go through his glove. Now, an interesting thing to note, I've heard it talked about since last night, since the goal. It seems like Jack Campbell changed gloves after that second goal. The piping and the color on the glove is a little different. So, I don't know, maybe still trying to test out some of that new equipment. But either way, he still had a very solid game, stopping 29 of 31 fired towards him last night. A .935 save percentage for Jack Campbell last night. And in his last 5 games, he has had a save percentage over 9. Jack Campbell is starting to find his form, and that is massive for the Edmonton Oilers. Another massive thing for the Edmonton Oilers is depth scoring, as Derek Ryan, Ryan McLeod, and Warren Foegele all getting goals in this one against the Kraken. The interesting thing for Warren Foegele as well, he led all Edmonton Oilers last night against the Kraken in expected goals with 1.13. He had a big game, and Evander Kane, his line mate, had a very good return game for himself as well, returning from that nasty cut to his wrist earlier than what many people expected, but did have a very good game for a guy who missed a lot of time for a scary injury. He had a couple of chances around the net. It's a matter of timing, really, for him now, because he looked good. He looked physical. He looked like he had a charge in the game or a change in the game, and never really looked like he was a step behind. So that is a good note for the Edmonton Oilers. Now the goals and everything like that will start to come along as he plays more games. Got to be patient with something like that. Speaking of patient, a guy who's waited a long time to play in the NHL, Vincent Desharnais, and he has been taking it by the horns. Vincent Desharnais with another NHL assist, his second NHL assist in just, I believe, 2 games for Desharnais there. He has looked really good for the Edmonton Oilers, and honestly, he's gotten 2, maybe 3 penalties for 2 penalties for being 6'7". The other penalty that he took last night, the slashing, was a penalty he felt he needed to take. It was a tactical penalty, and most times I won't blame players for taking penalties like that. If you get beat, you gotta make a play. You gotta make a play, whatever that may be. That's a team move right there. But I've really enjoyed what Desharnais has brought. Physicality, he's hitting in a sense, but he's also shutting down cycles. He can also keep up with some of the better skaters on the opposition. He has very good edge work. He can move north-south pretty well. Now, the knock on his game has been the east-west play, but either way, he's finding his groove, and after waiting in the minors and playing at Providence and being 26 years old, he's now finally getting his chance in the NHL, as Marcus Niemelainen did get sent down, paving the way for Vinny Desharnais to stay with the club. Speaking of staying with the club, Philip Broberg has had a lot of talk around him, and as well has since been paired with Evan Bouchard. A little bit of a controversial pairing, especially from myself. As I said, they weren't ready, and they have made me eat my words. Why have they made me eat my words? We will talk about that in just a second, but first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. from pro football to college basketball to soccer to basketball again. I know basketball is pretty exciting, but college basketball and NBA is going on right now, and they've got a whole lot of lines at BetOnline. Plus, if you love sports podcasts, which if you're listening to this one, you probably do as well, you can find those at BetOnline too. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard has been appearing for the Edmonton Oilers over the last 20 games for the Edmonton Oilers, or at least they have played 20 games together. And last night was a little bit, maybe not the coup de grace of their playing together as of late, but they had a very good game. Last night against the Seattle Kraken, they had a 1.375 expected goals for and had 14 on-ice shots for while they were playing at 5-on-5 together, and that ranked above the top for Edmonton Oilers pairings in both statistical categories, but those aren't, and last night against the Seattle Kraken isn't the only time both Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard have been putting up those types of numbers. So let's go through those numbers as a pairing for Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard. And then at the end, we will separate the two and see how they've been playing since December 7th. 192 total minutes together for Evan Bouchard and Philip Broberg over 20 games, and have a 60.2% expected goal percentage. Very impressive, and is top of the Edmonton Oilers defensive core as well. So that's an indication of just how deep this goes. They are first in expected goals against as well at 7.2. First in expected goals for per 60 minutes at 3.4. First in expected goals against per 60 minutes at 2.25. These are all at 5-on-5, by the way. First in shot attempts against at 159, so the least amount of shot attempts against. First in shot attempts for per 60 minutes with 63.68. And first in shot attempts against per 60 minutes in 49.63. Evan Bouchard and Philip Broberg are not only suppressing the opposition from getting shots and also keeping shots from around the perimeter and shots that won't really cause any issues for Jack Campbell or Stuart Skinner, but they're also producing shots as well. And we're also seeing that with an uptick in their offensive production. Each of these players over the last 20 games have produced points-wise, which has been a pain because I traded Evan Bouchard, but either way, we move in fantasy. Don't worry, but don't worry about me. In the last 20 games, Evan Bouchard, no goals, 7 assists, all 7 points being from there. 3 primary assists of those 7 and 4 secondary assists. And then Philip Broberg, 14 games played since December 7th, 4 assists for all 4 points, 3 of them being secondary assists. To me, yes, secondary assists, you can go, oh, it's a hockey assist, it's you're just a bonus assist. To me, what that tells me is that you are helping set up a goal. You're setting up the play. You set up to the setup man. There's got to be a setup to the setup man. There's got to be a play before the setup man. And that is what secondary assist tells me. He's making poised and practical moves with the puck, smart moves with the puck, and they're being rewarded. And Jay Woodcroft has also been in the same boat. After last night's game, Jay Woodcroft said this about Philip Broberg. He's growing before our eyes. He defends the way we want him to defend. He's quick back to pucks. He's not afraid on retrievals. He goes back and touches it first. He moves pucks quickly. Woodcroft would go on to say, I think he's going to be a very, very good NHL defenseman for the next 15 years or so because he's got all the tools. He is in great shape. He's serious about his craft. I'm thankful he's on our team. Those are important words at the end there. I am thankful he's on our team. There's a lot of people, including, well, I wouldn't put myself in this boat as well. I understand why, potentially. But a lot of people have put Philip Broberg specifically in trade packages to get another defenseman. In the short term, it makes sense. For a guy like Jacob Chikrin, whoever that may end up being, I understand. Erik Karlsson, I understand. But as he said in that quote, he will be a very, very good NHL defenseman for the next 15 years. Short term, it may make sense, but long term, I don't think so. The Edmonton Oilers are looking for an Oscar Klefbom 2.0. They have him right here. He wears number 86 for the Edmonton Oilers and could be a very important part of this organization for a very long time. It is important that the Edmonton Oilers do not make a rash move to get a defenseman for the obvious issues that they have and have Philip Broberg be a part of that package. They just can't. He has revolutionized the way Evan Bouchard plays, which is absolutely astonishing to me. I still see playoff Bouch here and there, but the ability to have somebody as comfortable as Philip Broberg right next to Evan Bouchard and have a guy who can skate alongside some of the best skaters in the NHL today on his left side, or on his side in general, I guess it would be his left side, that is important. And the Edmonton Oilers can't move a guy like that. Now, I know if you're going to make a move, as I said, you're going to have to, a big move, you're going to have to include a prospect. Right now, it's probably Xavier Bourgault. I'm not pumped about it because I think he'll be a very good NHLer. But if the Edmonton Oilers need to make a move, Philip Broberg cannot be in that deal. And it is what it is. I think he has become the player that a lot of us have wanted him to become. And we're starting to see it more and more. It's going to take time, but we're starting to see the maturation of Philip Broberg. Alrighty, speaking of maturation, we've seen some maturation in some prospects right before our eyes. The Edmonton Oilers prospects down in the U.S. of A., the good old United States of America. The Edmonton Oilers have 5 players currently playing in the States, 4 in college, 1 in the USHL. How are they doing down in the States? As one player specifically is breaking his own career records. Who is that, and where is he going next year? That is impressive. That is the question. Not impressive. It is impressive, but that is the question. We will talk about that in just a second. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode on the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report as we head down south to the US of A for the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report. As mentioned, 4 players currently playing in the NCAA, 1 in the USHL, and he will be making his way to the NCAA next year. We'll talk about him in a second, but let's start off with one of my favorite Edmonton Oilers prospects, and actually the top prospect, not top prospect, but the highest prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization playing down south right now. And that is Luka Munzenberger, and I say that because he was selected in the 3rd round of the 2021 draft, 90th overall. A lot of people were questioning this guy. Who the heck is Luka Munzenberger? Even I myself was going, Who is this guy? Well, if you got to watch him at the World Juniors at all, not this past year, but over the 2 years prior, he's a very exciting young defenseman, a very exciting defensive defenseman as well for the Edmonton Oilers, currently playing at the University of Vermont, where Jay Woodcroft's brother is the head coach of. Luka Munzenberger, so far this year in 18 games, no goals, 5 assists, which is actually his career high in points there and career high in assists. Did register an assist against Lindenwood on New Year's Eve on December 31st. Hasn't gotten a point since then, but looking to get a point, hopefully, against Boston College when they play Boston College on Friday. Now, he does have 18 assists, this season, or 18 blocks, I should say, so far this year for the Vermont Wildcats, I believe they're called, are the Catamounts, one of the weird names. Either way, 18 blocks for him, and no penalties so far for Luka Munzenberger since 2023 started. That is important for him, as sometimes he can make and take some pretty undisciplined penalties, but as of 2023, no penalties to report of. As mentioned, his next game comes up against Boston College on Friday. Now, his teammate Joel Mata will be joining him, and Joel Mata has been having a very interesting season for Vermont as well. He went in the 7th round for the Edmonton Oilers this past year, 222nd overall in the 2022 NHL draft. I think he may have to wear a number 22 for the Oilers. I'm just saying. But speaking of 22, in 22 games so far this year, Joel Mata has 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points for Vermont. He had 2 goals also against Lindenwood. A nice little weekend for Edmonton Oilers prospects, as he got 2 goals on the day before Christmas Eve, December 30th, and he has been an absolute menace in the face-off dot. Now, if you don't know too much about Joel Mata, I don't blame you, but Joel Mata is the type of player, he's a bottom 6 projected type player. He is very good in his own end. He takes pride in being a hard worker and takes pride in playing against the opposition's best players. That is the type of player the Edmonton Oilers are looking for, and he is the smallest player of all the players that are currently playing in the U.S. right now for the Edmonton Oilers. 6'1", 201 pounds. Yes, I said he is the smallest. The second smallest is his teammate Luka Munzenberger at 6'3", 198 pounds. The Edmonton Oilers have some big boys coming out from down south. We'll talk about more of them in a second. But as mentioned, he's very good in the face-off dot. Bottom 6 type player, full type player, likes to play in his own end. We've gone through that. But 57.14% in the face-off dot this year. He is one of the highest face-off percentages in all of college hockey. Another Edmonton Oilers prospect is on that list as well. We'll talk about him in just a second, but first, as mentioned as well, he does play for Vermont, and Vermont plays Boston College on Friday. Thomas Mazura, the next Edmonton Oiler prospect playing down in the States. He is from Czechia, but playing over in St. Lawrence. Never heard of this place before, but he did play at Providence last year, same place that Vinny Desharnais had played, but took his talents, Thomas Mazura did, to St. Lawrence, having a pretty solid season for them so far. 19 games played, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points so far for him this year. Had a goal against Niagara on the January 7th, which was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a empty netter. No, that was the next Edmonton Oilers prospect, which we'll talk about too. But he did have a goal on January 7th against Niagara, and then also had an assist a couple days before on January 5th against Niagara. A nice little series for him there. Now, his next game is on Friday, against Union College, and you can find that on ESPN Plus. So if you're looking to find a little bit of college hockey action, I don't know. I'm just saying you might be able to find it there. And speaking of being able to find college hockey, this next Edmonton Oilers prospect is playing on the number 1 team in the nation, Quinnipiac. Skylar Brindamore, the Edmonton Oilers' 6th round pick in 2017. He was selected 177th overall. Now, I mentioned the Edmonton Oilers have some pretty big guys. Thomas Mazura stands at 6'4", 205 pounds. Skylar Brindamore is 6'2", 174, as small as 174 for a 6'2 guy. But he has been absolutely tearing the cover off the puck recently for Quinnipiac. 22 games played, 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points in the last 4 games since the return from Christmas break for college hockey. In those 4 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. He also has a 5-game point streak dating all the way back to December, I believe, 7th, if I'm not mistaken. In that run, he has 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. He is also one of the best face-off men in the nation at 57.79% in the face-off dot, has almost won 300 face-offs so far this year. He's won 267. If he could reach 300, that'd be absolutely insane. Now, he is a center. He is a forward for Quinnipiac, but he has more blocks than Luka Munzenberger. He has 19 blocks in his 22 games this year. Yes, that is 4 more than Munzenberger, but very impressive for a guy who's already has 20 assists, has a 5-game point streak, 4 goals in those 5 games, and he's playing well in his own end. Now, I was reading recently a potential projection for a guy like Skylar Brindamore and Thomas Mazura and Joel Mata, more specifically Joel Mata and Skylar Brindamore. But you could see potentially these guys being bottom 6 players for the Edmonton Oilers. That projection had. That was on The Athletic. Maybe a couple of players to keep an eye on here. Skylar Brindamore's next game comes against number 14 Cornell, which is on Friday. That is on ESPN Plus as well. So if you got ESPN Plus, you're getting some fantastic hockey, everybody. And to wrap up, the one player who isn't in NCAA hockey yet, and that's Shane Lachance. Now, I say yet because Shane Lachance is currently playing for the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL. But next year, he'll be taking his talents to Boston University, has committed to Boston University, and I can see why BU wants him. In 30 games so far this year, 18 goals, 6 assists, 24 points, his career high in points and career high in goals already, and he's on pace for, in 62 games, 37 goals, 12 assists, 49 points. That is impressive. And that is a pace that it can get you to the NHL. I'm just saying, he is the son of Scott Lachance, former NHLer as well. The Edmonton Oilers selected Shane Lachance in the 2021 draft, 6th in the 6th round, 186th overall. Now, I mentioned big bodies, and the theme continues. 6'4", 194 pounds for Shane Lachance. If he can get his body into shape, he could be a very exciting little hockey player. Now, Shane Lachance does only have 1 goal since the new year, and that came against Muskegon recently, and their next game comes against Muskegon for a 3rd straight game for Youngstown and Muskegon. That game is on Thursday. It's at 6:05 p.m. Youngstown time, so probably, I believe Youngstown would be in the east, so probably 4:05. I don't know, but if you know Youngstown time, let me know when puck drop is for the Phantoms and Muskegon. Either way, that was your Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report. A lot of prospects to report on from under the below, what's the word I'm looking for? The United States of America, below the border, south of the border. I was wrong either way. Let's wrap it up there, everybody, as the Edmonton Oilers hit the ice again tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We will have a full preview on that game tomorrow as the Tampa Bay Lightning hit Rogers Place. A 7 o'clock puck drop for that one between the Edmonton Oilers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's wrap it up there, folks, as the Edmonton Oilers get the 5-2 victory over the Seattle Kraken. Remember, hockey is for everybody, and play La Bamba, baby.